Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting into something that's at the absolute heart of good software development, but it's something we often get wrong: the art of naming things. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that, well, if you're a developer, you know this feeling in your bones. You write some code, it's clean, it's clever, it works perfectly. But then you come back to it 6 months later, or worse, someone else does, and it's this tangled, unreadable mess. It's a nightmare to change. So what happened? Well, it turns out we're not just fighting against bad habits or tight deadlines, we're actually fighting a fundamental law of the universe. It's called software entropy. You see, just like a clean room that naturally gets messy over time, software systems naturally tend towards disorder. As we add features, as requirements shift, as we slap on quick fixes, the complexity just spirals. What starts out simple and elegant inevitably gets tangled and chaotic. And you know where the first symptoms of this rot almost always appear? In the names we choose. We see these vague, meaningless names like TMP work or flag. I mean, a flag for what exactly? We see weird abbreviations, mixed languages, names that are just plain misleading. These are the tiny cracks that eventually shatter a project's understandability. So how in the world do we fight back? According to programmer Fujio Kojima, the solution isn't some fancy new framework or tool. Nope. It's a fundamental shift in our perspective. It's about asking ourselves, who are we really writing this code for? For the longest time, we've thought of programming as telling a machine how to do something, step by step. But Kojima argues that our main audience isn't the computer at all. It's the next human who has to read, understand, and change our code. So our goal shouldn't be to give instructions. It should be to express our intent, to explain what we're trying to achieve. Take a look at this date-checking function. This is a perfect example of focusing on the how. Yeah, it works, but to figure out what it's for, you have to mentally run through this maze of modulo operators and nested if statements. It basically forces the human reading it to act like a computer. Now, compare that mess to this. This one line just perfectly shows the power of expressing the what. It's totally, instantly clear what's happening. It reads like a sentence in English. We're not telling the computer how to check for leap years. We are simply stating what we're doing, checking if the birthday is a valid date. So that's the magic trick, right? How do we get from that first ugly chunk of code to the second beautiful one? The secret, and this is the absolute core of the whole idea, is to treat naming not as some trivial thing you do at the end, but as the central, most important act of software design. Kojima has this brilliant term for this strategy: name and conquer. It's kind of like divide and conquer, but with a crucial twist. Instead of just breaking a problem into smaller pieces, we actively search for the core concepts hidden inside our logic, and we give them a proper name. And this is so powerful, because a name does way more than just label something. It defines it. The moment you give all that complicated leap year logic a name, like is valid date, you've carved a clear, well-defined concept out of a fog of implementation details. You've literally turned an idea into a formal piece of knowledge that people can actually use and understand. This simple phrase says it all. Naming is important. But it's more than that. It's not just one of many important things you do when you code. In this battle against complexity, it is the most important thing. Okay, so if naming is our primary weapon, it brings up a really important question. Who exactly is our target? Who is the audience for the names we choose? To get our heads around the answer, let's step away from code for just a second. I want you to think about a really simple, everyday object. Here's the key insight. When I say telephone, you probably pictured the thing you hold in your hand. But that's just the user interface. The name telephone actually refers to this massive, incredibly complex, global system of wires and satellites and switches. We name the entire system after the one little part we actually interact with. And believe it or not, this exact same principle applies to our code. The user of any piece of code is the other code that calls it. We call that the client. And the names we create, our function names, our class names, that becomes the interface for our client. And this is the big aha moment. Our names shouldn't describe what's happening inside a function. They should describe the service that the client needs. The client code needed to know if a date was valid. So we created a service for it and named it isValidDate. The client's need drove the name. Okay, let's put this all together. How does this philosophy actually translate into a set of principles we can use to write code that isn't just working, but is beautiful and actually lasts? All of these powerful ideas really come together right here. Beautiful code expresses the what, not the how. Every piece of it does one thing and one thing only. It doesn't repeat itself. It has precise, crystal clear names that were designed from the client's point of view. And because of all that, it becomes easy to test, simple to understand, and a breeze to change. Ultimately, what we have to remember is that every single line of code we write is a form of communication. It's a story that we are telling our future selves and our teammates. The names we choose, that's the vocabulary of our story. So the question we should always be asking ourselves is this: what story does my code tell?